All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Library Orientation 1. We have here with us Martin Crabtree, our librarian at Mercer, and he's going to share with you some research tips, what the library can offer, some information about the databases. Hopefully you all looked over that information literacy refresher to kind of get a head start. And this is going to help you as you write Research Log 1 and, of course, your first essay. So as Martin's going over information, if you have any questions, you can type them up in the group chat that you'll see over on the right. And yeah, at the very end, of course, if you have any follow-up questions, definitely feel free to ask. Okay, so I'm going to mute my speaker and hand it over to Martin.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. Jackie, one thing, when I step out onto the internet, make sure that you're seeing my internet screen. Sometimes that doesn't happen as it should. Thanks. Okay, so, and there we go. Good evening, everybody. I'm Martin Crabtree from the library. We're going to talk about library stuff for a while this evening. Things I want to talk about, come on. There we go, I'm running a little slow. I want to talk about scholarly peer-reviewed journals because you'll be asked to use this kind of information. Just want to talk about what it is and what you can expect to find when you use this kind of information, kind of how to leverage it a little bit to use it a little more effectively and efficiently. It can be kind of meaty and dense, and want to talk about some things you can do to make it a little more manageable when you're using that kind of information. We'll talk about computer searching a little bit and becoming more effective searchers. We've all done, the magic box called Google to find this information and such, and want to talk about some tools and techniques that you can use to move towards becoming a bit more effective and efficient when you're searching, particularly when searching things like library resources like databases and things like that. But the principles apply generally to web search engines like a Google also. I want to talk about the databases a little bit, just kind of highlight some things, think about some avenues you may wish to choose on that front. Also thinking about your topic and how you kind of work your way into the topic and how you take something kind of broad and focus it a little bit, looking at what you have for the first essay and knowing kind of going forward. You're not really handed a specific, direct, one question kind of a thing. You kind of come up with your own question a little bit and want to talk about, working through that. Also want to make sure we give credit to the authors of the work you're using. So we'll talk a little bit about MLA formatting also. I will start with my shameless plug for the library, though. Library's here to help you. That's what we do. That's what I do. And by far, the most important thing to me is student success. I mean, I have lots of roles and responsibilities in the library, in the college as a whole. But really, the success of our students and all of you really is kind of, my priority. And I want to, do what I can to help, your success as a student. I certainly can't do it all. I mean, most of that responsibility is yours. I mean, you attend the classes, you write the papers, you take the tests, all those sorts of things. But where I can help is with information. Anytime you need information, you need it for this course, you got a group project to do in some other course, you got to get a speech on, you got some other term paper to write, just need to find something out for next class, whatever. That's where I come in. And so, I want to make sure you get the information that you need. So please ask. I'll certainly help you find that information. I'm not going to just hand it to you quite often. Usually I want to make sure you know how to find information too, because the successful student, in my vision at least, of a successful student, is someone who is able to find information quickly and efficiently as well, but also realizes when they hit a dead end, they get confused, they can't find, it seems like nobody ever wrote about what I'm trying to find, whatever. They know there are people like me in libraries that can help you out. So please ask, be glad to help you anytime. So I want to talk about scholarly information for a little bit. Scholarly information, in the broadest sense of the term, is just information written by an expert in some field of study. We call that expert a scholar. And the information this scholar has created can take many forms. A lot of it is in print in some way, shape, or form, scholarly journals, online, electronically. But you could have things like, say, a scholarly film as well could meet that same criteria. Certainly scholarly books. And when doing college level work, the expectation is that you use this scholarly information more and more. You're learning in college, you're learning, not only, kind of the subject matter of whatever you choose to major in, but in other subject areas as well. And part of what you're doing is just learning how to learn. How do I gather information and kind of put it up here, roll it around in my head a bit, and kind of combine all the information I know into some final product. In the case of this course, into essays and papers and such. But college really expects you to use this kind of information because you're learning from the experts, the scholars, so to speak. So as you work your way further into your college career, expect to be using, and your professors will be looking for you to use this scholarly sort of information more and more. Now, the scholarly articles that you'll be dealing with in this course, they're written by that scholar, that expert. They do the writing. It's not some, staff writer at, a journal or something like that. The researchers write up the information themselves about their own research. And the researchers are writing to an audience of people in that particular field of study. Scholarly journals are, available in virtually any subject discipline you could imagine. And in all these subject disciplines, the authors expect you, the reader, to be an expert in that field of study, be it a psychology journal, be it a sociology journal, be it a criminal justice journal. The author assumes that you're an expert in that field, so the author will not explain terminology and the language and the jargon of that field of study. They will assume you as the reader understand it. You as the student might not, and you may actually have to do a little background work in order to actually, understand everything that's being talked about. The articles will tend to be long. You will not find a useful journal article that's a page or two long. They really don't exist. Scholarly journal articles, 10, 15, 20 pages, very average. I sometimes, work with students in the library. We find a great article, and as they read it over, they suddenly realize, wow, this is 27 pages long. It's really long. And, in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, that's really kind of average. Scholarly journals can get very long, 50, 60 pages and more sometimes. But that's what I'm thinking along also. But you rarely have to, read through the whole article, and I'll explain that in a moment. But these articles, very straightforward, very matter of fact. This isn't like, a newspaper or some magazine you pull off the rack at Barnes & Noble or off the shelf at the checkout line at the supermarket that's kind of meant to be quick and, kind of easy-ish reading and things like that. These are kind of dense and serious. Very few photographs, only if they're relevant to the research being presented. And a lot of the scholarly journals look an awful lot like books. A few charts, a few graphs, and that's about it. No bright colors and, covers with lots of photos and big lettering or anything like that. And in many cases, the scholarly journal's cover looks identical from issue to issue to issue. Same color, same design, same everything. You have to look carefully. Oh, it's the July issue. Oh, it's the September issue. Things like that. As I said, these articles may be long, but there's kind of an art to reading the articles. And that's part of kind of an undercurrent of everything I'm talking about tonight, is cutting corners and saving time. Research takes time. I can't tell you it doesn't. It takes some time and some effort to do it. But at the same time, there are many things you can do to save a little time here, make it easier there, shave a little more off at, another spot, and make it a little more of a, quicker process, because really what you're trying to do is gather that information because you want to have it to use, in this case, for your essays. And you don't want to spend all your time looking around. You want to get in, grab the information you need so you can spend more time doing a better job of writing a paper. So I want to talk about how you read a scholarly journal for the purposes of a course like this. I do need to kind of give that, that condition. Scholarly journals can be very important, in their entirety, particularly if it's your field of study. I mean, if you're majoring in education and you're, say, earning your doctoral degree in education, you're going to want to read scholarly journals closely and carefully from one end to the other. But for a course like this, you're looking for information from the scholarly journals that you can then incorporate into your essays. And you don't need to maybe understand in detail every aspect of the journal articles as they're presented. Now, you'll find as you read through scholarly journal articles, and really in almost any subject area, the more you read through them, the more you'll notice there is a kind of flow and pattern to how the information is presented. And many journals, break the articles into sections And these sections are very similar, almost standardized in some ways. And you will find that certain portions, certain sections of the journal articles will demand your attention. At the same time, other sections, you don't have to spend so much time focusing on it. You don't have to read all, say, 25 pages, carefully cover, end to end with your, hand ready to take notes at a moment's notice. So looking at the different sections of the article, the first thing you will see is the abstract. The abstract is about a paragraph-long summary of what the article is about. And this is important. You need to read this because this will tell you whether the next 20 pages are worth your time. And if you find that the abstract really doesn't speak to you, it's not the kind of information you want or need, you drop that article, you move on to another one and look for something different. You don't have to read anymore. If you like what you see in the abstract, then you move on. The opening section, sometimes it's titled interview, sometimes you'll see the term literature review used. This is the opening statements by the authors, the researchers. Here's the research we're doing and why we're doing the research, why we found this interesting, why we're pursuing this. Because research kind of builds on itself. And what you'll find in reading this section, the authors will talk about previous research in the same general area that has left maybe some unanswered questions or raised new things that might be interesting to find out about. And the author will talk about this previous research, and this led us to decide to look at why this is. Some other research found that something is the case. Now these researchers want to find out why it is. And this section is something you want to pay attention to and read somewhat carefully because you want to understand kind of everything that's going to be presented in the future in the article. Also to understand this previous research, because some of this previous research may be really good for your paper, what you need right now. And you may wish to hunt down some of this previous research. Again, if you find something mentioned, you're interested in finding more out about it, talk to me. That's where I come in. I'll help you find that information. The next section is the method section. How did we actually do the experimental research? Did we do a laboratory experiment? Did we look at medical records of 3,000 individuals? Did we interview people? Did we do a survey? Was it something like a psychological study where we put a number of people in a room with a one-way mirror and created some unusual situation and watched how they reacted to that situation? They explain all that there. This is a section that you can not skip completely, but skim over. You want to understand the kind of basics. How did they put this research together? How did they gather it? The fact that they chose to use 572 people instead of 583 or something like that, that's not important really. But did they do interviews? Did they do a lab experiment? Things like that. Because understanding, kind of the, method of their method, so to speak, when we move further into the article is good to have, an understanding of that. The next section, the results. This is where the researchers present the results, the numbers, the charts, the graphs, all these sorts of things. And here's where you're starting to flip pages. The fact that the data was good and valid and everything else, they have to prove it because that's part of the whole research process. We found this stuff out and we found that it is truly new information, it's valid and everything else. For your purposes for this course, if it wasn't valid information, it would have never even been printed. So consequently, you don't really have to, read through the results section much at all. Move ahead. The next section, sometimes called discussion and such, you'll want to read this. This last section is usually where folks in a course like English 102 actually find the information they need. This is where the authors explain and talk about what their research told them. What have we learned? What new knowledge do we have? And you want to read this carefully. And understanding how they did the research will help you better understand this last section and what the results actually mean. Because then you can take some of the things they found and use that as data and information to support your argument in the papers that you're writing. At the very end, you'll have a bibliography, generic term for a list of sources. Works cited, if you're using MLA, it's titled, references, APA, and such. This is a list of sources, books, websites, articles, interviews, whatever the author used in preparing the research for publication, all that information is listed in that bibliography. And quite often we're talking multiple pages of sources being listed out. And a bibliography appears at the end of every article. And this is the list of sources. Sometimes the list is called works cited if it's in an MLA format. Maybe it's references if it's in APA formatting. But this is all the sources used by the authors, the books, the websites, the interviews, the articles, in preparing their research for publication. I wanted to mention that bibliography twice. I did it on purpose because, again, this is one of those time savers, and it can be a very important one too. Because when you look through that bibliography, say you have a great article in your hand, you find this one is in my paper, you're excited. You know, you printed it out, you've highlighted things, you have notes in the margins. You just know that this has some good information you'll be using in your paper. Those individual listings, we call them citations, can help you find more information. Because when you think about it, you have a great article in your hand, and that author has just listed column after column of other sources on or very close to the topic that you're interested in. Why toss that stuff aside? Read through that list. I'll bet you anything you'll find something in there that's worth pursuing. Oh, that looks like an interesting article. Ooh, look at that book. Maybe I ought to check out that book. Things like that. You know, I have done it myself. I know other students have as well. They, you know, say you need 5 sources for a paper. You could easily find a really good journal article, and there's one source right there, and find the other 4 in the bibliography and those citations. And you don't have to search any further. Now, the citations are brief. Author title, pages, dates, things like that. That's it. Talk to me. That's where I come in. I can help you get that information. You show me, you send it to me in an email, you know, point it out personally, whatever. I want to see the 4th one on the list. The information contained in that citation gives me everything I need that I will get it for you. Now, notice I say I will get it for you. The only condition is you have to give me some time. You know, sometimes it's real easy. Oh, it's in this database right here. Boom, there it is. You got it right away. It might be that we subscribe to that publication and have it physically in the library. I know places to look at on the web, under rocks and things that, you know, a site like Google doesn't always look at very closely or isn't really well designed to find, and find some articles that way. If I have to, I will find a library somewhere in the state, in the country, in the world, if I have to get you the information. I'll have them make a copy and send it in for us to use. Now, that can take a little bit of time. So, you know, plan accordingly. I mean, if it's, you know, Friday, the paper's due Monday, and, you know, 3 p.m. Friday, you ask me to find you an article, and I find out I've got to find a library to send me a copy, I'm not going to get it to you in time. So plan accordingly. But really, this is such a great time saver. Use it. It'll do a lot for you. Now, I want to talk about computer searching for a bit. And firstly, just want to talk about the process of computer searching, how a computer finds information. Because when you understand that, you can start, again, moving towards becoming a more effective, efficient searcher. So, you know, really, the computer you're using right now, be it a laptop, a tablet, you know, iPad, whatever, it's an appliance. You really don't think much about how it works or anything else. It's, you know, like your television or your refrigerator. You plug it in. It's supposed to do something. It does it all the time, or all the time enough you don't question it, you know, how it works. And that's how we treat computers these days. I want to talk about the search process because, you know, when you go to Google, you click search, you get a result almost instantly. That's the period of time I want to talk about for a moment. So say we go into, you know, the search and we put in the word Trenton. Computers do not look for words as we people understand it. We know what the word Trenton means. A computer is only matching a string of letters. You ask for T next to R, next to E, next to N, etc. That's all it knows. It doesn't understand the meaning of the word. Now, granted, sites like Google and such have all sorts of algorithms built in that kind of help second guess what you're looking for and everything else, and they do a pretty good job. I mean, look at the phenomenal popularity of a site like Google. But at the same time, it's still trying to guess. And if I just put in the word Trenton, I mean, is it Trenton, New Jersey we're talking about, or Michigan, or Wisconsin, or Texas, or Maine, or Alabama, or Wisconsin, did I say? You know, there are a lot of them out there. You know, am I talking about one of these other Trentons? And the word or words we put in a box, we call those keywords. The first step in effective, efficient searching, particularly for databases, is to think for a moment. Don't just throw a word into the box and cross your fingers and hope for the best. I mean, just today I was working with another class of students, and their research was revolving around the concept of marriage. Now, there's a lot of aspects to marriage you could research, and the students had to figure out, kind of where they're headed with that. But I went into a database. I threw in the word marriage. I got 105,000 things for that one single word. We did some other things, added, added some extra search terms, did some other things I'll talk about in a moment. And we were able to whittle it down and throw out probably 98% of that list. And if we spent some more time at it, we could even shorten it some more. The first step is just thinking, what am I trying to find? Imagine having a perfect article or website on the screen. What word or words are the must-haves in that document? And having more than a single word can really, really, help you out. So you've done some thinking. You have a few words in mind. You can manipulate things further to better define what you want. And as I said with the example with marriage, we added another term to it. And you can add terms using Boolean searching. Boolean searching, named after a mathematician from about 150 years ago. It's real straightforward. You take keywords connected with three simple words, and, not, or, to better define what you want. For example, I'm looking for men and women. You could say men, not women, or women, not men, or women or men. I want to see both. They don't talk about both genders in the same document. It's not going to be there. The not. I mean, the Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles football team, they won the Super Bowl. Consequently, you put in that word Eagles all by itself, you're going to get so much football stuff. And it's not, if you want to find out about bald eagles and golden eagles, Eagles, not football. That will throw out that word football. It's Google whatever. Eagles here, yep. Football here, yep. It throws it out. If there's no football there, then it does consider it for the list. Sometimes multiple words may be relevant, car or automobile. What do we call the thing we drive around in? It could be a car, it could be an automobile, it could be an auto too. And consequently, we have ourselves covered. Some of the multiple ways of using, talking about something we're interested in. Parentheses will allow you to kind of link things together like you do with arithmetic. 2 plus 3 in parentheses times 5. Example here, car or automobile and pollution. We're looking for, pollution research, but we're interested in pollution caused by the vehicles we ride around in. We kind of have ourselves covered. Car or automobile, one or the other, it's got to be there. But second condition, pollution must be there also. Also, other things that will help you better define what you want. If you need a phrase, words that are in a specific order, put them in quotation marks. Quotes lock a string of words together. Examples I have here: civil rights, United States. Somebody's name, George Washington. Same thing, you put it in quotes, it locks those words together. They have to be in that order. It's the only way it'll be considered a relevant, acceptable hit. Now, be careful using the quotes. You don't want to put in an entire question, because basically, then you're asking for that exact sentence, word for word for word for word, and in no other manner. And, if you take, say an assignment you have and just put your professor's prompt in there, in quotes, you're expecting, somebody else to have written the same sentence your professor wrote. The chances of that happening are slim to none. So tear apart the sentence, look for the important words within the sentence, the keywords, connect them with and, not, or will certainly do you much better. Generally speaking, the more keywords you put into the box, the fewer hits you get. So again, you can this and this, not that, and kind of build a string, and that will help you better, narrow down the search, get fewer things, more relevant things in your results list. Excuse me. One thing that will help make it easier, again, time saver. You're out there, you're searching. You've done a few searches, you haven't found much yet. And that happens. It's happened to me, I'm sure it's happened to you in the past. You want to, once you find something that's good enough, that one thing, where it's like, well, let me print that out, let me bookmark the site, save it somehow, whatever. When you choose to do that, don't just save it and immediately move on. Ask yourself one question: why? Why did I like that one? What made this one better than every other one that I've found so far? Look at it, keeping in mind, feeding things back into your search. Did that author use some terms you hadn't thought of? Maybe they're looking at your topic a little bit differently in a way that you may wish to, kind of change what you have in the search box. There are many things you can kind of glean from those first few good hits that can help you improve what's in the box to, again, narrow down, focus in on the things that are truly relevant for the research you're doing at that moment. Now, I want to talk about the research process for a moment. Research is really a process. You start, classroom, whatever, you're given an assignment, write a paper. After the initial kind of panic of, I got to write a paper, comes in, there is a whole series of steps, and researchers have researched the research process and have found there's kind of a common flow, if you will, of what happens as you work your way through research. Now, granted, if the paper's due tomorrow and just starting the day before, that's a whole different ballpark. Excuse me, but if you take the time to do it properly, you're going to start out. You're going to be confused. I don't know what to look for. You have to think a little bit. Think about your topic. Maybe do a couple, sample searches. You feel a little uncomfortable. I don't want to find anything. I'm not finding anything. You're getting a little worried. But then you start finding a few things that might work, and then you find things that, yeah, they'll probably work. Yes, they'll work. And it's kind of like working your way up a hill. It's challenging at first. It's harder, but then you kind of hit the crest of the hill. Okay, I know what I'm doing now. I'm seeing that there's information out there. I just got to find it all. I'm already thinking of things in my head that I want to say in my paper. I have pieces written in my mind, and it's kind of coming down this slope until you kind of, coast into the end, turn in your paper and everything else. And when it comes to searching, in a research situation like this, you're not trying to, just hit a target. I mean, let me change the words until I get exactly the right article, first 1, 2, and 3. Taking that approach, again, you're spinning your wheels. You're going to spend a lot of time trying to think of other ways to manipulate what's in the box and not going to find as much information. So don't get yourself too wrapped up in coming up with just the perfect words in the box and spending all your time doing that. And I've seen students do that. The right word is just, bullseyes don't happen very often. A lot of research, really, a paper like you're doing now, or, certainly, like your final paper in this course, you need a lot of sources. You're going to gather information from all sorts of places. Right now, you have some poems you've read, some, short prose readings that you've done. You need to find another article to add to it. These are all the pieces of the information. One article that's going to do it all for you rarely exists, and usually that's not what your professor's looking for. Looking for you to take kind of a multiple number of sources and blend them all together. So don't focus on just the keywords. Instead, research is really like a meandering path. You kind of work your way through it. You allow the information to push you around some, because the information, you may find that what you think is a really neat idea, few people have actually written about and discussed, and finding the added supporting information for what you want to do might not be there exactly in the way you're thinking about. You may have to adjust a little bit. Allow the information to help guide you towards that final piece. Another thing, be careful. Don't put on the blinders and, use the words that your professor uses, to the point where it's nothing else is acceptable. I've had, again, past experience. Occasionally students come in, they sit there. Here's my assignment. My professor said this. I got to use the words that are on this paper. It's the only thing that's acceptable. No, it's not. It's the concepts. So if, you're looking at, different ideas, different concepts, the words the professor put on a paper may be good, usable keywords, but there may be some other ones that are even better. So don't put on the blinders and get stuck using just a very limited set of words. Again, allow yourself to look a little more broadly for some added keywords. Now, you may start out really, really broad. These are two questions I've been asked more times in my time in the library than I wish to, remember. A student comes in, I need information about culture and identity. I am, my hands are, I don't know where to begin. What culture are you talking about? What do you mean by the word identity? Same thing, conformity and rebellion. Okay, they're kind of opposites a little bit. But, other than that, conforming to what? What kind of rebellion are we looking at? It's really, hard for not only me as a librarian to help, but for you as a student to actually, begin the research process, because you really haven't thought too much yet. You really need to focus your research a little bit and do that through more thinking than looking at information immediately. So I want to talk about this process. So you have to really, again, effective, efficient searching, you have to spend a little time up front just thinking about, what are you looking for? You have an assignment, there are questions here. I'm just looking at the assignment your professor gave me. Is, looking at Emma Lazarus's poem, is America really that all, come on in, we're happy to have you. We're going to take care of everybody. We want everybody to come here kind of a thing. Is that really the case given some of the other, writings you've looked at? And how do you use these writings to support that argument? So you got to think about it a little bit. So the first, step is kind of selecting and focusing in on a topic. So for example, kind of stepping aside from specific coursework to give you a different, say you got to write a paper about the environment. Go write a paper about the environment, and that's all you're told. What do you do then? Well, you got to think about it. You got to kind of focus your research a little bit. Think about it. What about the environment am I interested in? And you decide pollution. I'm interested in pollution. That's what I'm going to look at. Okay? So what about pollution are you going to look at? We're going to focus in even further. There are all sorts of kinds of pollutions and aspects of pollution. And ultimately, you decide, I'm going to look at air pollution. I'm going to do my research about air pollution. Good start. Now is the time to start looking for some information. Now, this is not necessarily going to be all the information you'll use for your final assignment. This is to find out more about air pollution. Air pollution is still a pretty big subject, and you need to kind of focus in even further. What about air pollution am I going to be writing about? And this is where somebody like myself can help you out. You come in and say, I got to write this paper about the environment, and I'm decided to look into air pollution. Can you help me, think about this or see what's out there and such? And you can then do some preliminary research. And you find, yes, I could look at greenhouse gases and global warming and those sorts of things. Maybe that's where I want to go. Maybe look at this concept of acid rain. Some pollutions kind of make the precipitation, the rain and such, more acidic than it naturally would be, and it has affecting things and such as well. I may want to look at the health effects. What is air pollution doing to us people directly, affecting our health? So again, we've looked at some, there's some different avenues that we might go down, and you need to pick one out. So now, it's kind of, trying to craft some sort of statement, some sort of, here's where you come up with that argument. You're asked in the assignment to come up with this argument and then, present the information that supports it from the readings, from the outside information that you find. Now, when you're working on the argument, again, it sometimes can help to think kind of in areas, maybe subject disciplines or other kind of areas like that. In the example I have about air pollution and such, do I want to look at, kind of the political impacts, the biological effect, or the effects on society? Look at it from a kind of humanities, maybe historical perspective. How has air pollution affected people over time? What was the problems in the 1800s when they're using a lot of coal? Things like that. Is that something I want to focus on more than, say, current time? Maybe, I want to look at, actual, biological things, again, air pollution and such. From there, we kind of put all of this together. Again, just backing up, we started with pollution. We focused ourselves down. Environment. We focused ourselves down to pollution. We then focused into air pollution. We looked at greenhouse gases. We looked at acid rain. We looked at health effects. You decide health effects are the ones I want to focus on. So then you think about, health effects of air pollution, think about some subject areas, and you could come up with a subject, a topic like this. The effects of air pollution is a growing public health problem in America. Now you have something you can really, sink your teeth into, get some information, and actually write about and argue about. Yes, I think that, the health effects on people that air pollution is causing today is a growing, it's a serious growing health problem in the United States. Or is it not? You take a stand, then you gather the information from other sources to help support it. Same thing here. Is what, Emma Lazarus said, really, is America really that, all-encompassing kind of, bring us your huddled masses type of thing, or are there, contradictions to it? Where do we sit on this? And you're looking kind of for your opinion on these sorts of things. Now, as you're working through this process, there's some things that I see happen with students that can cause some stumbling. Firstly, you try to fit a broad topic into a very small paper. I mean, granted, a 5-page paper may seem a little bit big, But when you really get writing and such, sometimes, the topic you picked, it's hard to really do a good job because you've looked too broadly. Looking at the health effects, the example I have, on people in America, that you may need to narrow it down even further. Maybe I need to focus on just the effect of one pollutant. Maybe I need to look at just how the coal industry is affecting, health. Maybe I want to look at a specific, illness, asthma or, COPD, breathing problems or other problems that might be caused, cancers, things like that. So again, I might have to narrow it down further. So don't, get, again, locked in doing it one way. You want to write a good paper, sometimes you have to focus it even more. Another problem that students run into, they want to use every piece of information they found. From day one, I found an article about greenhouse gases. I found an article about acid rain. I want to include those. I found an article. I want to use them all. Sometimes you have to let some of them go. So, be willing to do that. If it really doesn't fit in your paper, then drop it and, use the ones that really, work for your paper. Some students rely too much on personal experience. Well, my grandparent, has breathing problems. It was caused by years of living next to a factory, and they polluted the air and everything else, and kind of doing this kind of personal narrative type thing. No, we're looking for facts that support what you're trying to say in your paper. So you want to kind of ease off on any sort of personal experiences and such. Sometimes it can be valid. If you want to do that, I'd encourage talking to your professor about it. Also, again, more opinion than kind of, fact-based argument. You really want the facts to support you. Imagine yourself having a heated discussion with a friend. I think this, and it's not just because I think so, and he thinks so, and she thinks the same thing, and list all these people that agree with you, but bring in the facts. That's what you really want to do. You want to have solid information to support what you're trying to say. Now, I just want to do a quick database check. I want to make sure everybody's okay with getting into the databases, getting to the library's homepage, getting to the databases from home, and things like that. If anybody's having any problems, have any questions about that, be glad to answer them now, or towards the end we'll pause for some questions and such. But I'm going to just kind of move on from here, assuming you kind of know how to get into the databases. Off campus, just to remind you, this is the login screen. Just like my Mercer, first name dot last name, 6-digit birth date, and off you go. Now, the one thing to mention, we've discovered with the login, there are a few. It's not a whole lot, but some students have changed their password from their birth date to something different. And that's fine. That's certainly your choice. However, because of how the computer systems work at the college, that change in password for your My Mercer does not carry over to our verification system. It's still a little bit of a separate system. So if you're trying to get into our system and you've been using a different password for My Mercer, you're going to have to go back to that birth date password for us. We can't change that one. We're kind of locked in by the college and the computer system. We can't go in and manually change anything in our system. So just want to make sure you're aware of that. So a couple places that you may choose to do some searching: Academic Search Premier, ProQuest Central. These are broad databases. They cover many subject areas, and they will, they've got scholarly journals in them. They got, good, substantial news sources as well. So if you want to go into, as your professor says, scholarly journals and substantive, news sources, things like that, quality news sources, they're fine to use. MERSearch, I'll mention MERSearch a little bit more in a moment, is another way of searching for information in our online resources. Most databases will help you with the MLA formatting and such. Oops. There we go. Get back out here. Now comes the time I'm going to step out live. And let's see if we can get everybody there. So, okay. Hopefully everybody's now seeing, Jackie, thumbs up. Are you seeing my library page right now, or still my PowerPoint?
It's still your PowerPoint.
Still my PowerPoint. Okay. How do I get that? It's not here. let me go this. Oh, well, I lost my screen sharing completely. There we go. Now you're seeing it, right? Okay, good. Just to back up one notch, back to the library's homepage, you should be able to get to our homepage. I'm going to get into the databases from here. Databases broken down by subject very broadly. Some things to consider. You know, a lot of students, you know, they dive right into the general databases and everything else, which is fine. But at the same time, if you think a little bit about your topic, your subject, you might find that, you know, some of the subject-specific ones might be a little more useful for you. Again, has less stuff to go through. It's a little more focused. You know, thinking about your topic and kind of, you know, America and all those sorts of things, and, you know, is it really the, you know, the welcoming country for everybody, and, you know, is it today as it was before? Is it better? Is it worse? All these sorts of kind of questions. I'm hearing a lot of, you know, society type questions. Makes me think social sciences. So you might want to go down into the social sciences and do some research down there as well. So, you know, again, you know, going down to social sciences, we have the psychology things and such. ProQuest social science journals, you might want to consider that. It's a little more focused, a little more heavily populated with scholarly journals, not so much the news sources in something like this, but do want to just kind of point that out as another place to look for information. And, you know, we do have, you know, up here, get back up to the general collection here. There we go. We do have academic search, ProQuest Central and such. So again, I need to log in myself since I'm off campus currently, and need to log in with my information, which is a little different because I'm a faculty member here. And now I'm into ProQuest Central. From here, you know, I can, you know, I can do some, you know, some searching. I'm just going to put in a couple. I'm just going to look at civil rights and say United States, just to, you know, kind of pull a couple things up. I'm going to execute my search. I'm not going to check any boxes. Well, yeah, I'm going to check full text. I'm not going to check peer reviewed. I just want to show you how to get to the news information if you want to kind of focus more on news and step away from just strictly the scholarly journals. I have my results up on the screen now. And if I move that out of the way a little bit. And what we have here, the list of sources. The icon tells me what sort of information I have. I have newspaper stuff here. ProQuest Central is, you know, fairly heavily populated with newspaper information. And it kind of presents it as a relevance sort. And so this is, you know, it thinks these are the most relevant things that show up for me. Off to the side, the source type is where I can kind of select what kind of sources of information I'm going to be using. You know, I can, you know, just pick scholarly journals. I can click on that. I'm going to go for more, though. I just want to show you how you can kind of manipulate this as well. And there are a lot of these sorts of things you can do here in the ProQuest databases. Again, newspapers give me a huge amount of stuff. If that's all I want to see, I can say include that, and it'll just include those sorts of things. I could also go and exclude things. I would encourage you to consider excluding the dissertations and theses. If you're looking for scholarly information, the dissertations and theses often get carried right along with the scholarly journals. These are book-length research papers written by people who are earning their doctoral or master's degree and such. It's, in most cases, overkill for what you need for a course like English 102. Now, I will also mention, I've had a couple of times students are doing some very specific research, and, you know, these things have worked very well for them. So if your research topic is very, very narrow, you know, somebody's looking at, you know, the rebellious nature of the biker culture, but in particular, women bikers, didn't care a thing about men, was focusing on women. There are a couple of great dissertations that really work for the students. So sometimes it can work. So I don't want to give a blanket statement, toss it out all the time, but less so. You know, from here, again, you know, we can select, you know, how we want to go and such. So you can say, you know, just give me the scholarly journals and the newspapers, for example. I'll apply that. And again, we're whittling down the list of things. We're at 400 and some odd. We've thrown out a number of things right out the gate. Also, the date. The earliest articles from 1855. If I'm thinking about the United States today, 1855 information is just going to be way too old. So I could slide up by decades if I wish, but again, 2010 to 2018, that's still kind of broad. Let me get really, really kind of exacting. Let's look just over the past 3 years. What have we found in those past 3 years? We'll update that. And again, I've thrown out, hundreds of thousands of things and narrowed things down further. The other one to point out that can be quite helpful is the subject. Excuse me. And if I click on subject, again, I get a short list here, but I can go for more options. Pardon me. And what we have are a number of options for subjects, and there are a whole bunch of them here. What you can do, which sometimes works very well for folks when you're kind of exploring and thinking about the subject, is going through this list quick and dirty, selecting the ones that are must-haves, and excluding the ones that are like, no, that has nothing to do with what I want, and leaving the ones like civil rights alone. You don't need to pick it yes or no. It's like, if it's there, great. If it's not, it's not. I mean, that kind of goes with what we searched. You can work your way down and say, the politics of all this, that's not what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in court decisions. I can throw these sorts of things out and kind of work my way down here. Civil rights movement, that's more interesting to me and such. Equal rights, ooh, that sounds even more interesting. You'll also find other, sub, themes. There's a gender component to this. So maybe I want to look at gender instead of race kind of civil rights questions. And I can, again, pick some things out. There's religious components thrown in. Also, if you notice things like books, I throw them out because I don't want to be told about a book. I want to get information right on the screen. I'm going to kind of pep things up here and execute my search. And again, I've shortened my list even further. Now I can get in and start looking at information and such. And I've taken a vast amount of stuff. Maybe I don't know the exact perfect words yet to use, but I've been able to take hundreds of thousands of things, narrow it down, almost 5,000. That's still a large number, but much less. And I could do more if I, spent the time at it. But spending time crafting that search up front can, again, really help you out, because a lot of times when I work with students doing this process more thoroughly, then they're like, oh, hey, this is good. And they're usually quite pleased with what they find. So let me get back to what I was here. There we go. And Jackie, we're back at the PowerPoint. Good. So MERSearch, I mentioned that. MERSearch is at our homepage also. It's right in the middle there. It takes a shotgun approach to searching our resources. It'll search multiple databases, most of them really. You can have it include ebooks as well, all in one search, which might be great. It can also be great for just, again, exploring. What's my topic about? Getting back to that, acid rain, greenhouse gases, health effects of air pollution kind of thing. Just what are people talking about? What are the hot topics in the general area I'm looking for? It can tend to yield a lot of stuff, which some students find overwhelming. It's like, oh my goodness, I have hundreds of thousands of things, and even when I work on trying to whittle it down, as I was showing you a moment ago, I still can't whittle it down to something that I feel comfortable with. It's not manageable yet. So, it can sometimes be an issue. Also, if you throw out the ebooks, again, that kind of helps keep it more manageable in many cases. A lot of times I find in working with students that have used MERSearch, after they've kind of gotten their kind of legs under them and they're moving a little bit on the research, then they step into subject-specific databases. Oh, I need to get into a criminal justice database. That's how I want to approach this concept of civil rights in the United States. So let me go down that route. You get into that database and you can focus in much more completely. So it's a nice tool to have. I certainly, I'm glad we have it. But at the same time, want to make sure you're aware of its, kind of limitations, particularly for doing detailed research like you're going to be doing in a course like this. Now, I've mentioned it before. Again, another one of these time savers and such, the article abstracts. Use those to, help you to decide which are good articles. Those journal articles are going to be long, 15, 20, 25 pages easily. No reason to spend your time reading an entire 15-page or 25-page long article and deciding, nope, not what I need. read the abstract. It will do a good job of helping point you towards the ones that are really worth your time reading, and the other ones you can kind of skip over, find something else that's a bit better. Now, I just want to also just touch on making sure we give credit to the authors of the works you're using. We want to give credit where credit is due. You are using other people's thoughts, words, and ideas, and you want to give credit to those authors. That's what's expected of you. Professor Voigtman is not just grading your papers on how well the grammar is and how well written your paper is, but another big component is how well you've incorporated all this outside information into your writing. This is a research and writing course. So, how well have you been able to do the research and then take this information and put it into your writing? And we're talking about not only the facts, conclusions, the ideas that these other authors and researchers present to you, but the words they use. And sometimes that can be a stumbling block for students too. You don't want to, use the other people's words. You have to put it in your own words. Paraphrasing is its skill in and of itself. So, be careful on that front. Changing a couple words in a paragraph that was written by somebody else is not your own words. It's somebody else's words with a couple words changed and nothing more. MLA formatting, that's what we're using for the English classes. The MLA book that has all the details, everything MLA, we have it in the library. It's not something we're able to make available to everybody as an online resource, but we do have it. So if you have a very specific question, the other semester I had a question. A student wanted to know, how do I list a tweet in my works cited? That was a bit different. We were able to kind of work it out with the help of the MLA book. To get to added help online, though, for the citation guides, the library's homepage, we do have a citation guide link. You can see the arrow pointing to it there. We'll step out real quickly. And we're still seeing my my web page now, Jackie? Yes, good. Down here, citation guide. Clicking on this will bring up options for MLA, APA formatting, and such. They take you to links to the OWL website. The OWL website, great overview of everything, APA or MLA in this case. If you've used the site in the past, about 6 months ago, the people at Purdue University revamped and kind of redesigned the layout of the page a bit. So if it doesn't quite look to what you're used to, it has been redone. But generally, the information is still there. We still have all the different formatting options, things like that. So if I'm working on a works cited page and I need to put a book in, I get all the book information here as I had before. The general format, last name, comma, first name, title of the book in italics, etc., and then all the examples. And I find the examples to be very, very helpful in putting together citations. I work well when I'm shown examples. There's only so much time, and there's lots of things to do. You have your coursework to do. You have a life to live. Many of you may have jobs, family, friends, other courses. A lot of things go on in our lives. And, though, maybe, you'd like to spend more time or just delve into your coursework real deeply, we have to be realistic. So again, effective use of your time. As I said before, I can't tell you that research, I can't tell you how to make research simple and easy. There is some work involved, some thinking involved as well. Craft that good search up front. Think about your search terms. The example I gave of going from, environment to pollution to air pollution, ultimately working my way into a, health aspects of, air pollution and such. That's some thinking you have to do. Take the prompt, take the readings you read, think about them. What do you want to say? Think about that. That's what we want to kind of focus on. Then craft the good search. Think about the key words. What words would be the ones I want to see in the good sources and things like that. Allow your initial search success to help you out. You need 5 sources for your final paper, for whatever paper you're working on. I'm having a hard time finding them. Once you find something that's good enough, you might use it, or you'll definitely use it. Look for things to help you. Use that, if it's a journal article, that list of sources at the end, the bibliography. Use that as a tool. Look within the article for other terminology, other ways of looking at your topic that might work better for your search. The database is a great source of information. High quality information, reliable, vetted kind of stuff. It's not like something, you search with Google and, is it good? Is it not? Is it fake news? Is it not? You sometimes can be quite hard to tell. Article abstracts will help you decide which are the ones that are, going to be the best ones without having to read the whole article. It's only a paragraph or so long. The article abstracts in the databases, just to mention it, short things, particularly newspaper articles and such, you won't always get an abstract there. But certainly the longer pieces, and definitely when you get into the journal articles, you'll always get a abstract, which will give you an idea of what's going on. Databases will also help with MLA formatting. I didn't get into that completely, but I do want to step out and make one comment about MLA citations, because I've heard it from faculty members from time to time, and just want to make sure that we don't run into any problems with it. So if I can move this out of my way a little bit. I have an article up on my screen. If I get the citation right here on the screen, click on Cite, brings it up on the screen. The database defaults to APA formatting. In the box here, we have an APA formatted citation. It's happened a number of times, at least enough that the English faculty are mentioning it to me. Student goes down, clicks on MLA 8th edition, then goes, oh, let me copy what's in the box, and off I go. This in the box has not changed yet. It is still in APA formatting. This change button here, I have to click on it first. Once I've done that, it redoes the citation, and now it's in MLA formatting. So look for the words works cited there at the top. That'll indicate that that's a MLA formatted citation. Once you've changed it, as long as I'm using this database and I don't shut it down, it will remember I'm working at MLA, but I have to click change at least once. So I don't want you to run into any problems on that front. If you need more help down the line a piece, please ask. As I said before, I'm more interested in your success than anything else I can do in our library. And the way I can help your success is put the information in your hand. I don't want the lack of the information you need to write a good paper, give a good speech, whatever it is, to be a hindrance in your successful work at the college. So please ask, be glad to help you out. With that, I'll pass it back to your professor to see if we have any questions, see if anybody has anything else they'd like to add.
Yeah, at this point, guys, I know there's only 4 of you, but would anyone like to ask a question, anything you're confused about that Martin went over, or any kind of lingering questions about research that we can address right now?
Also, just want to make sure everybody can get into the databases off campus, on campus, all that kind of stuff, because that's something, I can certainly, help you with.
No?
I guess not.
Any problems? Okay. Well, again, if you have any problems as you're doing your, I think okay, Amanda just said she doesn't have any questions. Okay, that's good. So if you guys do have questions as you're working on your research, obviously you can go to the library, call them, email them, and you can come to me as well if you have any, questions specifically about the assignment or my expectations. Yeah, we're all here to help. So. All right, if there are no questions, we can wrap up, and I'll just say thank you to Martin, and yeah, Amanda just wrote in the chat, thank you, Mr. Crabtree. So thank you, Martin, and thanks to the 4 who attended, and you will see that extra credit on your research log. So, all right. Thank you, guys. Stop the video, and I'm going to end the meeting. So I'll talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.
Good evening.
Good night, everyone.